YouTube, what's happening? It's Mark here from Mark's Mind. This is my part 2 of my video talking about dating and marriage in Japan, dating and marrying. In this section, well, before I talk about this section, if you haven't seen the last section, which I think you should do, right? It makes sense to watch part 1 before part 2. I was talking about finances and how Japanese women basically control all the finances in the family, in most families anyway. Now in this video, part 2, I want to talk about family life. Okay, so again, if I didn't say this in the first video, I'll say this. This is based on my observations and stories I've heard that have solidified things for me that marriage in Japan, at least to a Japanese woman, ain't for you, Mark. I didn't say it earlier, but in my time in Japan, I've had a few long-term relationships and they've all been with foreign women. I've just not gone down that Japanese road. But anyway, let's go into this whole thing about family life here. So you get married, you have your kids, say you have 1, 2, 3 kids, whatever the woman desires, that's you have those kids, whatever you desire. Kids are on the scene now, okay? 9 times out of 10, once she's had the kids, yes, you're going to be relegated to your own separate bedroom. So those times when you're going to go to bed, you're going to cuddle up with your wife and, do the dirty, where you wake up in the morning, whatever, if you're a night guy or a morning guy. But your wife, when you wake up in the mornings, most times in a Japanese home, I guarantee you, the wife is not next to you. Your wife is not next to you, right? Once she has had her kids, what happens in Japan is that she moves to a separate bedroom and she sleeps with the kids. And you are left in your separate bedroom with Mrs. Brown's 5 daughters, right? Or Mrs. White's, depending on your race. But you're left by yourself. You are no longer important. Her kids are number 1. You'd be lucky if you become number 3, right? Your kids are her kids. You might as well say her kids because it's all about her and the kids. You are no longer important. You're obsolete. You are the old Terminator replaced by the new Terminator, so to speak, if you're a movie guy like me, right? And there are situations where sometimes it would be mother and father in the same room with the kids. But I know when I was a kid, I think by the time I was age 2, I was moved over into my separate bedroom. I used to sleep in a cot or whatever next to my parents' bed when I was a baby. And I can't remember if it's 1 or 2, but at some point I was moved to a separate bedroom of my own. And if I cried, they would wake up and come change me or feed me or whatever, right? So once as you can imagine, fellas, once you move to that separate bedroom, more times than not, sex stops. It's over. Maybe she might come over into your room sometime to give you a slice or whatever. Maybe you sneak into the room with her and the kids and you can give her a slice. But most times than not, sex is over, right? And this is why I think, and I touched on this in the first video, that the hostess clubs and just straight out prostitution is such a big thing here in Japan. I imagine these industries in this, if you want to encompass the whole thing as the sex industry, they must make billions. I didn't do any research into this, but just based on what I see when I go out in town, or used to before COVID, and see all these guys walk into these places, in where I live in Japan, there's one area in particular, a couple of areas in the city that's just Sodom and Gomorrah, right? So, and you walk through, I'm like, Jesus, I feel unclean walking through. And I'm a man who likes women and all that stuff, but it's, and you just see all that perversion just amplified in your face. It kind of is a turn off. So anyway, the hostess clubs, let me give you a brief synopsis on what hostess clubs are. A hostess club, in the official sense of the word hostess club, is where men pay a cover charge and then buy drinks to sit there and for a woman to pour his drinks and talk to him and laugh at his corny jokes and make him feel like he's a man, right? She will accommodate him. Oh, she'll go, oh, really? Oh, wow, that's great. Oh, wow. Right? They do all of that amply, overly, what's the word? Flamboyant. Not flamboyant, that's not the word. Animated, overly animated. I'm so interested. What? You ate toast for breakfast this morning? Oh, wow. Right? So they talk to these guys because it's really sad, because these guys just want to be able to have a conversation with a woman who isn't busting their balls every day, demanding money and telling them how imperfect they are, because that seems to be a trend here. Having spoken to quite a few married men here, they're women that's constantly telling them why you're not perfect and you're not perfect, you're not Japanese, and you're not, even the Japanese guys get it. So I think they just want to go and talk to a woman where the woman can just let them feel like a man for once. They're emasculated at home. Their wives run them like boys at home. At least with this woman, I know it's so fake and fantasy, but at least I can feel for a brief moment that I can, maybe it feels like I'm pulling her in a bar, like I'm meeting her for the first time and I'm chatting her up, even though I know I'm paying for this fake experience. There's that. Then there's a straight out prostitution where men just go pay, I guess, out of their pocket money for the men who get pocket money, or the men who control the money, which is, I would say, is a minority. They just go straight up pay from their own money. Like, look, I'm going to go pay for it because she's at home with the kids. I'm irrelevant. And, I might as well go get some companionship somewhere. So a lot of these guys have girlfriends on the side. The really rich dudes, if you've ever seen that movie, Land of, was it Rising Sun? Sean Connery, Wesley Snipes, when they have the concubines in these apartments and all this stuff. The really rich dudes, they roll like that. But the average guy doesn't have the money for that. So they go pay for sex or have girlfriends on the side that they pay for, right? I remember my ex, who is from America, she's moved back to America now. She was telling me what her friend was telling her Japanese female friend was telling her. So the friend was telling her that the husband came to her one day and said, look, you're not sleeping with me anymore, but I'm a man. I have my needs. You're not sleeping with me with my monthly pocket money. Can you give me some extra money every month just so I can go pay for it? And the Japanese wife was like, nope, you ain't getting shit. Excuse my language. You ain't getting anything, right? So that's what these men, they have to resort to. So that's why you see them getting extra jobs on the side or getting their bonuses snuck off, as I talked about in part 1, into a separate bank account. It's really sad. It's a really sad existence. I wouldn't want that for myself. I would want to be in a situation where when I finish work, I'm looking forward to going home, to go talk to my wife, go see my kids, play with my kids for a bit, get them fed, get them washed and dressed and prayers, the Lord's Prayer before they go to bed, so I can have some me time or some us time with my wife. We can talk, we can cuddle, have a couple glasses of red wine or something and watch Netflix and, get down to some hanky-panky, once the coast is clear kind of thing. But these dudes, they work long hours. When they go home, most times during the week, they don't even get to see the kids because their kids are sleeping before they get home. Their wives, maybe she cooked, or maybe what she did, she just got some pre-done food and put it on a plate for him to make it look like she cooked when we know she didn't, right? She doesn't want to sleep with him because her whole focus is those kids. And I've spoken to a lot of women over the years, especially the young women that I've taught. I've said to these young women, listen to what I'm saying. They're young. Maybe I can help them. I said to them, listen, when you get married, always remember that even after you have kids, your husband is still number one. Because if you and your husband's relationship falls apart, the family falls apart. This is just common sense stuff, right? I'm teaching them. Some maybe just say, what's this foreigner talking about, as they call us, gaijin? What's this gaijin talking about? What? I want to get married. I want to have my kids in my separate bedroom. I'm going to stop working, and he's going to do everything, and I'm going to bust his balls day in, day out, because that's what the culture dictates. There is this thing where after women give birth, they go to stay with their mother for about a month or two. I don't know why they do it, but they do it. I guess it's for the mom to teach her stuff about the kid, what to do, feeding, cleaning, change, whatever. That they go to stay for a month or two. And I'm convinced, I don't have any factual proof of this, but I'm convinced that it's during that period, that 1 or 2 months, I'm convinced that's when the indoctrination of how to bust your husband's balls is implanted into their microchip. I'm convinced of it. I'm convinced that that's the period when it all happens, right? This matriarchy is ridiculous, right? And again, like I said in the first video, my personality coming out of the culture that I come out of, and it's just my male pride, toxic masculinity, whatever you want to call it, will not allow me, or I will not allow myself to be run like a boy by my woman. I'm sorry. My girlfriend, she knows this, right? My girlfriend is actually Japanese on paper. She's Kenyan Japanese. Yeah. So she was born and raised in Kenya. That's the closest I'll most likely ever get to marrying a Japanese woman. Because she's coming, her perspective, how she sees life, she sees it from a more traditional African way, right? She sees her husband as being the head of the household, and she's a backbone to support him in his endeavors and whatever. And of course, I'm, like I said, I'm supporting my woman too, right? But she can take that, if you want to call it backseat. I don't want to say backseat because I don't see my woman as being behind me. I see her as being beside me. But she acknowledges that as the man, based on the customs that she grew up with, I'm at the head and she supports me. So that's one thing that I wanted to talk about. What else was there? Oh, this point. I'll move on to this next point. Conforming to Japanese culture. This is another thing that me personally, I just can't do. There are certain cultural norms that I follow. You know, when I come into my flat, I take off my shoes at the entrance that they call genkan. I take off my shoes at the genkan. There's certain things I do to conform to the Japanese culture, because when I lived in London or when I lived in Jamaica, I just walked into my flat in London or walked into my house in Jamaica when I was a kid in my shoes, right? But now I take my shoes off at the door. So there's certain things that I've picked up from living in the Japanese culture, which is fine, right? I can assimilate to a point. I know, you look at me, a black guy, I'm never going to completely assimilate. I'm not going to really be required to assimilate into Japanese culture fully anyway, but I can conform to a certain degree. I remember when I was in London a few years ago, I was popping by the workplace of a friend of mine that I used to go to university with. And there was a guy in her office that he turned out he's married. I hope he's still married to a Japanese woman. And he was telling me about how many times he'd been to Japan, the places he's gone to, the typical landmarks, Kyoto, wherever, Tokyo, wherever. He's been all over, Osaka. He did this, he did that. He ate this, he ate that. He met her family members, all that stuff. He was telling me about all that stuff. And then he said to me, you know what? Sometimes I think about maybe, because I had such a great time in Japan. Sometimes I think about maybe saying to my wife, we should move back to Japan. And I said to him, dude, take it from me. Under no circumstances do you ever, and I mean ever, consider moving back to Japan with your Japanese wife. And he's like, why? What's the problem? What's the problem? I said to him, look, mate, I've seen this happen to so many people before. They meet their Japanese wives in wherever country they met them. They got married there, whatever. Things are cool. They come back to Japan. And as soon as they come back to Japan, the wife goes into one big thing about what he can or can't do, or what she can or can't do because she's Japanese. Because now she's back in Japan, she has to conform back into that Japanese culture. I've seen a few guys go down that road, and one guy in particular, I said to him, keep your wife where you are. He came here nonetheless, and their marriage has just gone to crap, right? And because I knew from what I'd seen from other people, the mistakes they made before, right? So I was telling this guy, keep your wife where she is. If there's a Japanese American woman or a Japanese British woman that you meet, whatever, and she grew up with kind of British or American culture, whatever country you meet her in, keep her there. Yes? I know what I'm talking about. Keep her there. So yeah, the whole conforming thing, I've seen dudes' wives scold them for not holding their chopsticks properly, or, oh, why do you do that? Because Japanese people don't do that. I remember one dude was telling me about some racial stuff he experienced on a train once. He was just sitting on the train, minding his own business, going to work. Some people were looking at him, and like I've had it here as well. They kind of, or sometimes they just get up. You sit down and get up because they don't want to sit next to you because the filthy foreigner touching them is just so disgusting. My girlfriend, who is half Japanese, to me looks half Japanese, but the Japanese people, she just looks black. She has been on the bus, and she speaks Japanese as well. She's been on the bus. They've seen her on the bus, thinking, oh, she's a black girl. She doesn't know what we're saying. They've said stuff like, oh, she sat next to me. I have to go home and burn my clothes. She's sitting right next to them, understanding every word they're saying. She said once they're saying, I wonder if we wipe her down with bleach, if she'll go white. Right? So, separate to my girlfriend's story, this guy is sitting on the train, minding his business, experience some racial stuff. It's here. They don't necessarily come out and call you whatever, N-word or whatever, but come on, we're human. 80% of communication is body language. We know when someone's hating on us, especially when their face looks like this. Right? So this guy went home, told his wife about it, and his wife was immediately went into blaming him. What did he do to make those people upset with him? Just sitting there like this on a train, right? So I'm just gonna be Mark always, right? I can be, and I use this word loosely, polite in a Japanese way. I can be polite. People always think that everyone in Japan is super polite. No, they're not. Trust me. I have to sometimes, I exercise outside my apartment building sometimes, right? I go outside, do my skipping rope or whatever, or jumping jacks and burpees just to do my cardio, because I live in a flat with a neighbor below. I can't jump, boom, 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 jump around at 6 in the morning. So I go outside, and there'll be people walking their dogs or whatever outside. And if I don't say good morning to them, Ohayo gozaimasu, if I don't say good morning, they would die first before they say good morning to me. But I don't want to, that's a topic for another video anyway, talking about racism or prejudice, at least in Japan, things I've experienced. I'll save that for another video. But the family life stuff and conforming, that's one thing. Those are two things that out of basically 4, I've covered, 1 in part 1, 2 now in part 2, and I'll do part 3. I'll talk about divorce, because you best believe divorce is highly likely. But hey, we'll wrap this one up here for today. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any comments to make, please make them in the comment section below. Please click like, share. But before you share, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Click that notification bell, click all, so that you get all notifications whenever I publish a new video. Thanks for watching. Take care. This has been Mark from Mark's Mind. Be good. Peace.